going to do that now before I forget. Here we go. Okay. So starting out this year, we're going to start talking, and as people come in, that's okay because we're recording now. So if they miss things, they can go back and look. But this season, the rest of the season, we're going to start talking about some of our character strengths and how we can use those to stay motivated, be confident, and solve problems, be closer to each other. This is a little bit different. Actually, it's a lot different from the disc. It is another survey, but it's going to give us quite different results. So everybody's going to get the same 24 character strengths. It's just going to order them differently depending on what you tend to use the most and what you tend to value the most, what's important to you. Um, you might get results that you're like, I don't agree with this at all. That's totally fine because the point of it is if you don't agree, okay, great. That still tells you something about yourself. You've still learned something and you're able to use that. And sometimes you might see some strengths that you're like, I would not have expected that to be up there. Maybe we're underutilizing some of our strengths. Maybe we're overusing some, right? So it's just a tool to help us kind of look at that and look at what are our resources that we're using to get our goals and are we using those as effectively as we possibly could be? Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen in theory. What's this one? Uh, yep, it's that one. Okay, share this over to character strengths. Okay, so if I can find the right button. All right, so when we're talking about character strengths, what we're talking about is it's part of our personality. It tends to be a positive part of our personality, but it impacts how we think, how we feel, and how we behave, right? So think of it as like a pair of like really tinted sunglasses. When we put it on, it kind of filters how we see everything, right? That's what our values do. That's what our strengths do for us. It kind of helps shape our perspective of the world. All of us have character strengths, but we use them in different ways. You might have the exact same strengths in the same order as someone else, but you could use them completely differently. So, building some awareness around what our strengths are and how we're using them can help us be a better teammate, can help us bond better with our coaches, with our family, our friends. It can help us be more motivated, help us push through things differently, and it gives us a set of things to be confident. These are my strengths. I can use that to feel more consistent, to feel better going into a race. So we're going to talk briefly about these 24 so that at the end, I'll give you a link to the survey so that you can figure out how yours rank. And when you get your results, I want you to understand what your results are saying. So we're going to go through and define these and talk about, hey, this is what this looks like in swimming. And for each one, here's how this can be beneficial and here's how this can maybe hurt us, right? Hello? Oh, I think someone's just not muted. That's okay. Okay. So our first one is appreciation of beauty and excellence. And that's one like I know when I took the test for the first time, because this is a test we used when I worked with the military. It's actually been developed by researchers since like the early 2000s. So many different groups use this. They have a specific one for youth and a specific one for adults. But when I took this, I was like, appreciation of beauty and excellence, like that's not me, right? Because I was looking at it as a different definition. I was like, I don't really like to go and look at art. Like, I'm just not that sort of person. I don't go to museums and stare at paintings. And that's what I thought it meant. But it could be that. But it can also be, you like looking at different landscapes. You like looking at cool architecture. It can also be you like watching sports and appreciating, like, that was a great sport performance, right? Because it's appreciation of beauty and excellence. Like, if somebody is above and beyond in a task they're doing, it could be math, it could be sports, it could be a great like TV show, right? If you're able to recognize and appreciate the good in somebody, the excellence in somebody, the beauty in somebody, that's appreciation of beauty and excellence. And that can be really helpful in swimming because it can help us to really hone in on our technique, right? It can help us to really look at all those little details. It can also, there can be a little bit of a shadow side to it, right? If you're somebody who this is a really high value for you, it's one of your top five, you might be a little bit more perfectionistic. You can get a little too caught up in the details of things, and sometimes that can hurt us, right? We can burn out a little bit. We can not be able to look at the bigger picture. All right, our second one is bravery. So we're defining that as you face challenges, you face threats, you face difficulties or fears rather than avoiding them, right? If something goes wrong, you're going to hit it head on, right? You're going to try and find a solution to it. You're going to look at things as challenging rather than threatening, right? What can I learn from it? What can I do? Let me try something new. And that can be really good, right? In swimming, like that can help us keep pushing. That can help us to, you know, in when we're experiencing race pain, we're going to keep going. We're going to be willing to implement feedback and try something new. We're going to be willing to take risks, right? Um, that can also, there's a shadow side to that where maybe we're taking too many risks, right? We might be more likely to end up injured because we're taking risks we shouldn't be, right? We might be doing things that are a little bit stupid sometimes, right? Maybe we're trying like some ridiculous, crazy, like actually somebody told me their high school swim team, like somebody broke their wrist or something the other day because they were trying this TikTok trend. So it can be a mixed bag, right? All of these, it's just about finding the right balance with them. All right, creativity. So creativity, we're defining it as thinking of new ways to do things, right? You're trying to figure out like what's a different way I can do that. Let me be creative. Let me adapt to things, right? So creativity, it can be like, you're really artistic, but it can also be you just like to try a new way to get from point A to point B, right? And that's great because these, when we took the disc test, these would be our eyes, right? They like to try new things. They like to brainstorm. They have all these cool ideas. And the shadow side we have to be careful of with creativity is, are we taking action, right? Are we so caught up in all these cool ideas and trying to think of things in a new way, but are we actually applying any of it? So that's the thing we have to be aware of. If we're really creative, like that's great, but are we actually trying out any of these ideas rather than being like, here's my list of cool ideas? All right, our next one is curiosity. So, curiosity, we're defining it as a natural desire to learn or try new things, right? So, when you are curious about something, you go and ask a lot of good questions. You're probably seeking out like some good feedback because you're trying to figure out things, right? And that's going to help you in swimming. You're curious about things. You're trying to learn new things. You're going and asking questions and looking things up and trying to find good answers. Again, the thing we have to be careful of here is, are we focused in the right way? Are we so caught up in asking all these questions that we're not focused on the task at hand, right? So we have to be able to be aware of the time to ask questions and the time to take action. All right, our next one is fairness. So, fairness we're defining as giving everyone an equal opportunity, making sure that everyone has a fair shot. And this is great because this can really help us, be a good teammate. People are going to look up to us and know that we're going to be fair and reasonable. And so that makes us kind of trustworthy, right? Um, with fairness, the shadow side to fairness is sometimes we can get a little bit rigid with it. Like we can get a little bit harsh about like, no, everything has to be fair. And we're not always able to make things fair in the moment. And so sometimes that can trip us up a little bit where we stop making progress because we're so like angry and caught up in things. Okay, our next one is forgiveness. So, forgiveness, if you have that as one of your top strengths, you're probably really good at letting things go. If somebody has made an error, if somebody has accidentally hurt your feelings, if you're good at letting people be human. You're good at recognizing that people are not perfect, that they're going to make flaws. And one, you're good at applying that to yourself. So if you make a mistake, you're able to say, like, okay, it is what it is. I'm going to move on. But you're someone who's going to give people a second chance. And again, that really helps build your relationships with your teammates and helps you be closer to them. Something we have to be careful of with that one is sometimes people realize that, hey, this person's going to give me second chances no matter what. And so you can get a little bit taken advantage of. So you just have to be aware of like taking care of yourself a little bit more than other people might be and just finding that balance again. Okay, our next one is gratitude. So, gratitude is one that we've talked about a lot, So this is where we talk about like, hey, what was the best part of your meet? What was the best part of your weekend? What went right? What went well? That is building the skill of gratitude and it helps us build optimism. That's the benefit. So gratitude, we define it as a sense of feeling thankful, but not only feeling that, but also taking the time to express it. And that's what we do when we sit down and talk about those things. In gratitude, the benefit of gratitude as a strength is it's the foundation for optimism. It's the foundation for all of that silver lining and able to look at here's what's good to come. And that's something that helps us push through when things are hard, right? It helps us bounce back when something doesn't go right. It helps us look at, like, okay, well, I'm thankful for all of these things. And even if not everything went right, I still have things to be thankful for. And so that helps keep going. It helps us stay motivated, right? Gratitude, there's not a lot of downside to gratitude, but I would say one of the shadow sides is just sometimes if we're constantly looking at the good, that can come across as a little bit of like toxic positivity to some people of like, okay, well, I feel like I have to only see the good, right? And sometimes things are bad and it's okay to admit that. So, just not being super rigid in our gratitude and recognizing like sometimes it is really hard to find something to be thankful for. Sometimes somebody really has had a horrible day and us just saying, well, you're being ungrateful, you need to find something to be grateful for is not super helpful. Okay, our next one is honesty. So, honesty is defined as you presenting yourself in a genuine and true way. You're taking responsibility for your actions and feelings. So, basically, in any given situation, you're you. You are who you are. You're going to show up and be your authentic self, right? Um, so, in honesty, that can be really good because it helps us, one, be honest with ourselves, right? Like, if we're not putting the work in and training, we're going to be a little bit more self aware of that, right? It also helps build our relationships with our teammates, with our coaches, right? Because we're going to be more trustworthy because we're very genuine, we're very honest. The downside to that is sometimes we have to be aware of how we're being honest, right? Because sometimes people don't want to hear the honest thing, and we can be offensive if we're a little bit too blunt, if we're a little bit too harsh in how we're being honest. That can be offensive to people. Okay, our next one is hope. So hope ties in really well with gratitude and optimism. You have positive expectations about the future. That's not saying you're saying everything's going to be rainbows and butterflies, it's all going to be great, right? Sometimes it's just, wow, training sucks right now, but eventually it's going to be over. I'm going to get to race, it's going to pay off, right? So hope can be really helpful in our training because it helps us stay motivated. It helps us be confident about our goals, right? Like, okay, things will work out. I will get out of this slump. I will eventually get to this spot where I want to be, right? Um, the shadow side to hope that we have to be aware of is false hope, right? If we're constantly just saying, like, oh, well, I hope that this is going to happen, I hope that this is going to happen, and we're not acting towards it or it's not realistic, then we're wasting our time, and that's where hope is not helping us. All right, our next one is humility. So, humility is one that's misunderstood a lot. It's not just about not recognizing our accomplishments. I think a lot of the time people think, like, okay, if I'm humble, then I'm not going to talk about anything I did right. It's a lot easier to look at what humility is not rather than what it is. But what it is you're accurately evaluating what you did, right? It's not bragging, it's not seeking out the spotlight, it's not overly drawing attention to yourself or viewing yourself as more important. But at the same time, it's also not talking down on yourself. It's not being overly critical of yourself. It's not letting people walk over you. And it's not feeling like you're not worthy of an accomplishment. It's somewhere in the middle. So it can be really helpful being humble because it helps us stay centered. It helps us not just get caught up in all of those good feelings when we accomplish a goal so we can keep moving, right? It helps us have an accurate image of ourselves. But at the same time, the shadow side is if we're overusing humility, then we're kind of chipping away at ourselves. We're being a little bit perfectionistic. We're not letting that good feeling sink in. and that can burn us out over time. So again, it's all about a balance, but humility is, I think, more of a balance than a lot of the others. Okay, our next one is humor. So humor we define as being able to recognize what's funny in a situation, being able to look at the lighter side of things, right? It's kind of like being able to see the silver lining, but you're also able to give that to other people and take them with you. Humor is one that it's not necessarily crucial, but if someone has it, like, man, that's so nice to be around, especially when things are awful, right? Like if you're in the middle of something terrible, like you haven't dropped time in forever and nothing's going right and you're injured and you have someone who's able to sit there and just laugh at that with you and in a good way and just kind of make you feel better. Um, it makes such a difference. It helps you really cope with bad situations and things that are tough. The shadow side to humor that we have to be careful about is knowing the right time and the right person when we're using it, right? I've seen a lot of people where, they're trying so hard to just make light of a situation and help lift the mood and help people, keep going. And the joke just does not land right. And, people get mad and offended, and that hurts the relationship. So you just have to know the right time and place and who you can who appreciates humor and who it might not be good to make jokes with. Okay, our next one is judgment. So judgment is all about using logic in making decisions and being strategic, right? Evaluating ideas, evaluating opinions and facts, thinking through things before you do them, right? If you have come to a conclusion, you've thought through it before. You're not going to just jump to a conclusion. And this can be really helpful in swimming. So, say you're about to race and you're like having those thoughts of, wow, this is going to be a bad race. This is not going to be good. I'm going to tank this. And if you're able to have judgment as one of your higher strengths, it's going to help prevent that chaotic thinking because you're going to have that voice in your head that's like, wait, that's not completely true. I've showed up every day to practice. I've put a lot of work in. I've had some good meets in the past, right? And so it helps put that in perspective and balance you out a little bit. The shadow side to judgment that we have to be careful about is sometimes we can come off as a little judgy, right? Like overly critical, overly rigid, overly harsh. And so, again, having that balance. Kindness. So kindness is simple. It's just being nice to others. You're generous in how you're supporting people. You're the one who's going to lend a pair of goggles to somebody if they break theirs. You're going to stay and count for them during the mile. You're going to cheer them on during a race. And because you're giving that support to other people, you're probably going to get good support back, right? And that's going to be really helpful in your progress towards your goals. The shadow side we have to be careful of is if people recognize, wow, there's this really kind person, sometimes that can get taken advantage of. So you just have to be aware of like, I'm giving all the support to this teammate. Am I getting enough back? Right? Am I being taken care of? Am I giving more than I'm getting out of this? Right? And just making sure you're setting those boundaries so you're not burning yourself out. You're not constantly only helping others at the expense of yourself. All right, our next one is leadership. So, leadership is the ability to take a group of people and help them work effectively towards a goal while maintaining good relationships in the group. So, I don't just mean like your relationship with different people in the group, but think of it as like we've talked a lot about culture lately. You're able to keep a good culture in that group while still getting stuff done, while getting that group to the goals. And the shadow side to leadership, like it's great being able to get people to their goals. That's going to help you guys accomplish things as a group. The shadow side is sometimes you have leaders who are really influential that people like to follow and they lead people down the wrong path. So that's just one to be aware of is if leadership is one of your strong qualities, are we using that in the right way? Are we helping people stay focused and locked in during practice? Or are we getting everybody off task, right? So, are we using this quality in the right way? Okay, our next one is capacity to love and be loved. So, this one, a lot of the time when you see it, it's like, oh, I don't love my friends. It's not like that, right? It's not that sort of love. It's just how much you're able to value close relationships that you have with the people around you and show up in a genuine way and be caring to those people, right? Like genuinely caring about your family and wanting them to be happy and well, genuinely caring about the success of your teammates and being happy for them when they reach a goal, right? Rather than being jealous that they've gotten that goal and maybe you haven't, right? So it's just the bond we have with other people. And that can be really helpful for us if we have close relationships. We're going to have support. We're going to have good people caring about us and helping us reach those goals. The downside is sometimes, you have to, again, be balanced. Make sure that you're also taking care of yourself rather than always sacrificing for other people around you because you want them to do well. It's great to help people and want them to do well, but you also have to make sure you're taking care of yourself, right? That you're getting good sleep, that you're getting good nutrition, that you're taking care of your stress. All right, our next one is love of learning. So, love of learning is very similar to curiosity. The difference is curiosity, you want specific questions to be answered. Love of learning, you just want to learn new things because you want to know more things, right? You are interested in expanding yourself and growing, right? You want to be trying new experiences, right? Doing new things. And love of learning can really help when things get tough, when you're getting negative feedback, when a challenge comes up, when a setback comes up, because instead of looking at that as, oh my God, something went wrong, we're able to look at it as, okay, what can I learn from that? That didn't go well. Now I get to learn, right? Now I get to learn from my mistakes and try something different. Um, the shadow side to love of learning is was similar to curiosity to creativity. Sometimes we're so caught up in trying to just learn that we're not applying what we have learned. So we have to make sure that we're taking the time to actually try some of the things rather than just reading about all of them. Okay, our next one is perseverance. So perseverance is about being hardworking and finishing what we've started, even if obstacles come up, even if things go wrong. It can really help with staying motivated, with pushing past setbacks, with resilience. Perseverance, the shadow side that we have to be cautious of is, are we trying to persevere when we need to take a step back and look at what's not working, right? Instead of just, I'm going to keep pushing, I'm going to keep pushing. Sometimes we have to be like, okay, that's not working. I need to try something different instead. Okay, our next one is perspective. So, perspective is the ability to see the bigger picture. And this can really help as we're working towards a big goal. Sometimes we get caught up in the weeds and we're like, wow, nothing's working. I'm never going to get that goal. And we lose perspective. So, this can help us and our teammates to keep that big goal in mind. Sometimes the shadow side is just we get too caught up with the big picture and we're not focused on the task at hand and all the little details. So, we have to balance that as well. Prudence is our next one. So, prudence means being careful about your actions, stopping and thinking before you act. You're not taking unnecessary risks. You're not doing something you're going to regret later. You're thinking before you do it, right? It's a little bit cautious, right? And that can be really good because you're probably going to be doing things that are consistent, right? You're going to not be taking unnecessary risks. You're probably going to less likely to be injured, right? At the other time, sometimes we have to take risks. Sometimes, you're in the middle of a really hard set or race and you're really hurting and you have to take that risk to keep going. Or sometimes you've gotten a piece of feedback that you need to implement and it's scary, right? You're trying something different, you're trying something new. So, again, this is kind of the opposite side of bravery where we have to balance taking the risks and being cautious and make sure we're not too far on either side. All right, our next one is self regulation. So, this is all about controlling our emotions and our behaviors from those emotions, right? And that can be great. We're about to race, we're really nervous, we're able to be in control of that. That's going to help us, right? On the other side, we have to be able to, we don't want to be overregulated, right? We don't want to be suppressing our emotions. If we've gotten a great accomplishment, it's okay to express that and be proud, right? If we have a really disappointing race, it's okay to express that and be upset for a second. It's just, again, all in balance. We're not letting our emotions take control of us, but we are still expressing them. Okay, our next one is social intelligence. So, social intelligence is about being aware of why people are doing things and why they're feeling a certain way and how they're feeling. And because we're able to understand that in other people, it helps us fit into a bunch of different social situations. And that's going to help us to bond with our teammates really well. The shadow side we have to be careful of is that we're not using this skill in the wrong way. Sometimes people who are very socially intelligent use it to get things they want. It can be a little bit manipulative, right? Or we can become people pleasers where we know what someone wants. And so we're trying to make sure they're always happy. And then that puts stress on us. So again, balance. Our next one is it can be called spirituality or a sense of meaning. It's basically just the belief there's a higher meaning in life and we want to understand more about it, right? And this can be helpful because if we have a goal and maybe we're not doing well towards getting it, it can help us keep motivated, keep pushing, power through, right? Um, we have to be careful. The shadow side of this is sometimes it can be used as an excuse, right? I wasn't meant to win that race, you know? There's a higher power out there that didn't want me to win the race today. It doesn't matter. I didn't show up to practice for the last 2 months. It was out of my hands, right? So we have to be careful about using it as motivation versus an excuse. Teamwork, what it sounds like, right? You're committed to the group before your own individual wants and needs, and you're putting the group first, right? And that can be great in working towards goals together. Again, you just have to be careful of taking care of yourself as well. Our last one is zest and energy. So, zest and energy, you're approaching situations with enthusiasm, with excitement, right? You have energy, you want to be there. And that can be great. Like, the people who they bring good energy to the pool deck, right? They're great to be around, they make practice more enjoyable. The shadow side is if you're always really energetic, you could burn yourself out. So, you just have to be a little bit more on top of taking care of yourself. Okay, that concludes all of our different strengths that we're going to talk about. I'm going to put the link in the group chat. So let me see if I can open that. If I have the right link. Okay, so this is the link to the survey. It should take about 10-15 minutes. It's just a bunch of questions about how you approach different situations. And once you take that, it'll give you your list ranked of, hey, here's your strengths and what you value, what you tend to use the most. So the top 5 is like the ones you probably use a lot. The bottom 5, the ones you probably don't use often, or maybe you just don't value a lot. And then the ones in the middle are like, just kind of average. Once you take this, it will send a copy to me, and then you will also have a copy. So if you somehow miss your copy at the end, go ahead and email me and I can get that to you as well. So once you have the link, that's all I got for y'all. We'll talk more about this and how to use these strengths next week, but you're free to go take this as soon as you got the link.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Cool. Thanks.